All the people that matter are here. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everybody for coming. My name, I recognize everybody here, so you guys know who I am. It's been a hell of a few weeks. It's almost an accelerated version of what we saw happening last summer. But because of how emotionally draining last year was for everybody, we're seeing more apathy towards it. We're not seeing as much action. But that also comes with the fact that, especially because most of these things haven't happened close to Springfield, there's not much we can locally do here besides try and prepare and prevent the instances that lead to them from happening here. The murder of Dante Wright on camera by a 26-year veteran is egregious, and it demonstrates why reform doesn't go far enough in a lot of cases. You see someone who was the head of the police union and likely taught other officers how to go through these instances before, and a 26-year veteran that field trains other officers supposedly mistake a taser for a service weapon. If that's the type of training that's happening, you can't fix that. We need to move on beyond what we currently see as law enforcement in this country, because what we have now isn't working. We need complete community control of the police is what we need to work towards. Not community oversight. It's good to have, like right now we're working on getting subpoena powers for the Oversight Commission so we can get transparency. But the people need to elect a board that can hire and fire the chief so he's accountable to the folks that he's policing. The people need to elect a board that can actually do investigative procedures and have the power to enact binding punishments. Because right now what we see is the punishments that they're giving to themselves when they police themselves, it's not working. I'm not sure who's seen the article that broke yesterday, and it's disgusting, honestly. The Springfield police pulled over a father who'd lost his 2-year-old daughter in egregious circumstances, which DCFS is still being investigated for things that lead from that. And in the course of the search of his, likely illegal search of his vehicle, they unsealed the urn that his daughter's ashes were in and poured them out as part of the search. Right here in Springfield. I don't understand how somebody can be that disrespectful. To see that, and it's disgusting. What's even worse is the argument they're using to defend themselves. They're claiming qualified immunity. They can't be sued in civil court, they're saying, because their actions were done in the justifiable course of duty. So one of the things we need to do right now is support House Bill 1727. It's the Bad Apples in Law Enforcement Act, and it ends qualified immunity and allows individual police officers to be sued in civil court. So there's actually some skin they have in the game. They're not, first of all, right now currently, we pay for these lawsuits. And this isn't the only one the city's involved in right now. They're still litigating one from 2018 where an officer who's involved in the same lawsuit I was just talking about body slammed a man and knocked his tooth out. we see these same officers popping up in multiple lawsuits that, when settled, we pay for. If they're going to be acting outside of the course of what they were hired and swore to do, that needs to come out of their own pocket. So when I'm back on Facebook in 6 days, I will be disseminating information that you guys can share as far as how to call your legislators, who to call to ask them to support this bill. And then here locally, we need to be able to see what they're doing. We need, for right now, the Review or Oversight Commission needs to at least have subpoena powers for transparency. Because that way, even if they can't punish the officers involved in instances of misconduct, there's transparency. So we can come out and we can draw attention to it, and we can put the pressure on it to make sure that the proper punishments are being handed down. Right now, it's not reviewable. The Review Commission can't even look at something if the Springfield Police issue a punishment for it. So they could give that guy 3 days paid suspension, and it's considered a punishment and therefore is no longer reviewable by the Review Commission. That has been extremely inactive anyway. It doesn't look like anything is going to slow down. Since the beginning of the George Floyd trial, there have been an average of 3 Americans killed by police every day. The U.S. police, if they were considered a military force, would have the 3rd largest military budget in the world. 3rd only to the actual U.S. military in China. Here in Sangamon County, Jack Campbell is trying to get an MRAP, a 27-foot, 11-ton armored vehicle that the county actually got rid of the one they had just a few years ago because it wasn't necessary. And he's even talked about he would use it in parades. So is this really about keeping the people safe, or is this about supporting your own image of what an officer, of what a law enforcement agency should look like? And if that's what you think a law enforcement agency should look like, then you're not doing anything to work with or in the communities that you're serving. Sangamon County deputies don't even have body cameras, but they want an MRAP. There's been so much that it's hard to juggle and process the information. People are at a sensory overload. What was that? Yeah, it's emotional whiplash. You move from one and then you get blindsided by another instance. The trial of Derek Chauvin gets interrupted by the murder of Dante Wright, gets interrupted by coverage of the murder of Adam Toledo. And then here locally you find out the local officers would dump the ashes of a 2-year-old girl as part of their duty. It's hard to process. But that's why we need organization more than ever as we do this. Because doing it by yourself, it becomes emotionally exhausting. But when we have others that we're working with, and I have to thank Val and Bree, Lizzie, you guys have been helpful in online stuff and in-person stuff, and making and producing content that talks about the issues and draws attention to them. Because we can't do it, we can't do it alone. One of the things that I'm working on now, most of you guys know, I ran work in there last November. So I'll be posting about it when I get my Facebook back. But May 2nd at 2 p.m. at Duncan Park is going to be the first meeting in a good while of the Sangamo Valley Green Party. We've seen that the Biden administration has raised military spending and raised disbursements to police departments in the first quarter of 2021. He didn't lower it from what Trump was giving them. He gave them more money, which we're seeing being utilized in the form of chemical weapons being used against American citizens across the country. It might have stopped the outward bleed, but the things that we were all pissed off about are still happening. So we need to figure out how we can work outside of the duopoly and actually get something going that's people-driven, that's not corporate interests funneling money into campaigns for folks who fit the bill, that actually has people who are passionate about what they're doing and are willing to put the work in to realize the changes that we're moving for. Because there's not going to be what I grew up in left for my daughter if we don't. So if anybody has any questions or would like to get more involved in getting the local Green Party organized and joining, definitely come see me and grab my number. And that's going to be something that I think is going to be huge, because we can run local candidates. Because when you run candidates local up and don't just focus on starting at the big races, then that's how you actually make the changes that are felt on the streets of your community. So thank you guys for coming out. Bree, would you like to say a few words? This is Bree Roberts. She has been an amazing voice for everything that we've been accomplishing and trying to accomplish over the last year here in Springfield.
I'm just here to give you guys some tips on how to actually do something about the problem, because we talk about it a lot at protests, but we don't actually, I feel like we're not addressing the issue head on. Like, protests are doing something, we're spreading awareness, but we're not actually changing laws, and we're not actually voting people out of our office in this area that need to be voted out that have had problems. So I want to remind you that we can call our government officials and request that things are taken seriously. So if you have an issue with the officer pouring out the ashes, you can call your government officials and ask for them to take the situation more seriously. Do something about it. There are ways you can call other government officials in other states. It doesn't have to just be where you live. I've called Florida government officials to voice my opinions about something that's happening there that I don't agree with. You don't have to live there to have an opinion on something that's happening. Another thing that you can do is ask yourself how you're contributing to racism and oppression. Because I'm sure in some ways we all are, because it's been so programmed into society that it's been beaten into our identity. So what are you doing? Do you hold microaggressions to the black people that you're working with? Or do you go out of your way to prove that you're not racist? Because if you have to go out of your way to prove that you're not something, there's probably something you need to address on the inside. And if you don't, and if you've addressed that already, I'm really happy that you have, because that's hard work. But a lot of people feel like just going to protest is enough, and it's not enough. You need to do the inner work in order for it to show out in society. Another thing that I want to remind you that you could do is spend money with local black businesses. I believe his name is Dieris. I'm not sure, I could be wrong. But a couple black business owners just bought out a strip mall in Springfield. Go to them, support their businesses, put your money into the community so we could do something about the issues in the community. And if there isn't a black business that has something that you're looking for, support local white businesses, because it's not just about race, it's also an issue of class. So if we build the society up economically, it'll be easier to address issues because we'll have the money to fund it. Another thing that you can do is start signing petitions again. I'm sure we've slacked off on that. It's gotten really tedious to sign all of these petitions because there's so much going on. And I understand, I've kind of slacked off too. But we need to get back on it because those petitions are actually doing something. So we need to do it again. And start funding GoFundMe if you have the money for it. Because that money is funding things that are actually changing things. If you don't have the money for it, you can share it on Facebook or on Twitter, whatever social media you use. And the last thing I want you to do and be reminded of is just be aware of yourself and the way you're handling these situations, because it's so easy to fall back and it's so easy to get lost in being tired of everything, because I've been tired of everything. I fell back. It's easy for anybody to. And just be aware of how you're feeling. Give yourself a break if you need it. It's really overwhelming to deal with constant deaths of innocent Americans because of the color of their skin. So if you're tired, you can rest, it's fine. But don't rest forever. Don't get stuck in that. Give yourself a break and then come back even harder than before, because that's what breaks are for. And lastly, at least thank you for spending part of your Sunday for a person and multiple people who no longer have Sundays to spend with people like this. So thank you for dedicating your time for people who don't have it anymore. That's all.
Thank you, Bree. And that's
You're welcome.
all things that are extremely important to keep in mind. We are honored to have Alderman Shawn Gregory here to talk about some of the things that he's trying to do at City Council, which we've been working towards since we were on these steps nearly a year ago.
So I didn't come with anything prepared. I don't do well at that, so I jotted out a few things. You know, as it only seems like we were here just a little time ago, and actually we were, to mourn another loss of life of a young person or a person of color at the hands of police. It seems to be the same sad story over and over again. So you might be surprised at the turnout today. I'm not. People are tired of marching and begging a government to just treat it fairly. Begging police to be less quick on the trigger. People are tired. Their hearts are broken. Keep watching this stuff. This is real life trauma for you. And it's unfortunate that it takes a death or somebody to get seriously injured to really spark a fire. So what have we done here in Springfield to ensure that we don't have an incident like that here? At the beginning of the year in the budget, me and Alderwoman, now State Senator Turner, we input a system into our body camera system that provides us analytical data. We'll run reports on such as to analyze how our officers, when they have them on, are treating our fellow citizens, black, white, and different. We'll receive those reports at least on a yearly basis. I'll be pushing for more. As it was reported on the news, our officers do take a training in high pressure moments. We're going to try to add another one because we want. There is no doubt we've had some instances here where we could have had a Chicago or Minnesota. We've had about 6 instances where there has been some police interaction with young men who may or may not have had a gun. But our officers did not shoot. That's from you and everybody's voice is being raised to say we need more training, we need more this. So that's what we have to continue to do. Recently, as has been reported on the news, I will be filing an ordinance to allow for our police review commission to have subpoena power, or to have the power to compel and ask an officer to come and speak to them. Why is that important? Because there's sometimes, in some situations, unfortunately, that we don't get all the information. We just seen that in Chicago. Where one hand says one thing and then we get the video and it looks like something else. Amongst many of their fears of many of you not being trained in police tactics and things, all of us know right from wrong. All of us know if somebody is to a point where they can be handled safely. So we're pushing that. We feel like our citizens are good enough to stand on the police review commission and render recommendations to our mayor and to our police chief, because that's what you're going. That's what you're going to be judged by in the court of law. It's going to be a jury of your peers. So our police review commission should be able to have the power to at least ask an officer to come. And guess what? They still have a law, like we're talking about some of these laws that need to be changed. There's still a federal law from 1985, Police Bill of Rights. It gives them this modified immunity. All of these things that just protect them where you really can't do anything. All of those things have to change. And that takes, just like they were saying, us calling our legislators, calling our state senators, calling your aldermen, making sure that your voices are heard. So those are some of the things that we're doing, and we always listen to the people. That's one of the things about me. For every city council, every meeting I go to, every decision I go into, it's strongly affected by you. I can walk into one of those meetings and be dead set on doing one thing, and a crowd of people can be there, and I think it's important for us to listen to. So stay after it. Don't lose faith. There was a time where you know, there was a saying where it only needs to be more than one person to make a change, to start a conversation for change, okay? So stay with it, encourage your friends, encourage your black friends to keep hope, not feel discouraged, but there's a lot of raw emotions going on right now. We gotta stay focused, we gotta stay at the task at hand. So for our city, we have to keep building and building. Just because we haven't had these situations in here doesn't mean that we're not gonna put the policies and procedures in place to ensure that it does, and we don't want that. Our police department should want to have as many tools as they can to safely do their job. We have to, one of the things about me, and I want us to remember this, right? I pride myself on any other group throwing any other group into one barrel, and that means the police too. We identify guys who are not living up to our mission statement here in Springfield, Illinois, and we deal with them. Because we really do have some fine officers. We really do have some guys that's coming in, doing their job and going home. And then we got some jerks. We got to deal with them. And these laws and these hurdles is how they stay there. And once we address those things, then we will be able to remove those. And those guys who deserve that respect will be able to gain that respect. But we got to handle that first. We got to get rid of the bad apples first, because they will continually make that profession look bad. Okay? And for anybody listening who's fighting for justice and equality, because they'll shoot back at us. They'll say, oh, you guys are coming to fight for justice and equality, and you have this many shootings over in the hood of this. We know this. But we're not here by mistake. This has come from years and years of oppression, years and years of war on drugs, where we're dropping drugs in here and we're up in the ante for punishment. It's been written about, it's been proven. So we know why these things are here. We're trying to address those problems throughout various communities throughout this country. There's people working. But that doesn't take away, don't never let that feel like that takes away from the fight of justice and equality, because you want accountability and you want good things in the community. Nobody wants a bunch of nonsense in the community. So I come to make that clear. We stand for justice for all people, no matter who they are or who is for or who is against. It's been said before. So I appreciate you all for having me, John. I appreciate you. Keep up the fight. As I said, don't ever get discouraged by the numbers, because as long as it's more than you, you're on the right path. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Next, we're going to hear a few words from a young man that I had the privilege of meeting at the vigil that we held for Adam Toledo and Dante Wright just a few evenings ago. I don't know what it feels like. I am a white guy that has always had privilege, so I've never known what it feels like to think that that could be me, or that's a situation that could have happened to me. Because I've been in situations where, had I not looked like me, what we're seeing now is what would have happened. So, thank you the other night. If you'd like to come on up, Ethan. Thank you the other night for sharing with me kind of your perspective on how the Adam Toledo murder feels from somebody with the same age. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Ethan. I'm 13, and my first protest was a few days ago, and it might seem like a bit of a jump to go from being on one to actually speaking on one like this. So I'll just cut to the chase. So again, I'm young, right? That's very obvious. And
You got this.
thank you. I'm tired of hearing people who are my own skin color getting murdered for absolutely no reason, right? When they can disarm a mass shooter in a movie theater, but they can't handle a 13-year-old piece of crime. And even before that, with George Floyd, all the others, Tamir Rice, they can handle someone who just murdered, shot into a crowd of moviegoers, people who just wanted to see what, Dark Knight Rises? But they can't handle a 12-year-old boy with a gun, with a fake play gun. So I'm just tired of it. Again, I'm a 13-year-old. I should be. Again, this is not 1985 anymore, but I should be at home enjoying whatever I enjoy. But instead, I have to come out here and basically ask that the police stop murdering people of my skin color and now people of my own age. A 13-year-old got shot by the police while he was complying. That confirmed for me something I never thought would be confirmed. That no one's safe. Absolutely no one's safe. First it was adults, okay. But now children are getting shot in the street, in alleyways. I remember last year before this coronavirus hit us, I was with a friend and we went to Starbucks, right? And as a joke, I laid on a rock. And then I heard the blip of a police sign. And I stopped and I went, is this it? Is this going to be the time where I'm either in the hospital or my mom's going to have to who's going to come home from work and get told that her son is in a body bag in the Springfield City Park? Now, obviously, nothing happened. He just wanted to make sure I was okay and I didn't just pass out on the rock, which he obviously did that. I appreciate it. But that fear shouldn't have been a thing. It should still be a thing. It shouldn't be. I should be able to go out on a walk and not have to worry about every police car I see. Worrying, is that the one that's going to shoot me? I have to keep my hands out of my pockets, make my hands clear to see where they're seen. That's why today I put my keys on a lanyard. I was going to wear it on my neck because I didn't know if my mom was going to get off of work in time to come. And I'm like, oh, I'll just walk. So I put my keys on a lanyard and I put them around my neck and I said, why am I doing this? Why am I sitting in my own home worrying that when I leave, I'm going to get murdered in the street by someone who's supposed to protect us? Someone who is getting funded by taxpayer dollars. And there is no reason for it. And so It's disgusting is what it is. It's disgusting that children who were born in a year where if you rounded up, it would go to 10, have to worry about getting murdered. I have to worry about every police. My mom, she's right there. She's a great woman. I love you. Hi. There's a one.
Hi, Mom.
She said to me in June, which is also my birthday month, so a few weeks after my birthday, she said, Ethan, you know if a police comes up to you, you comply, right? And I said, oh yeah, no, I know. I know that when a police officer comes up to me, if he pulls his gun out, that I comply. But now not even that's enough. And again, what is threatening about a 13-year-old like this? Nothing. Nothing is threatening about a 13-year-old on his knees. They can calmly take down a man, like I just said, who murdered, 12 people in Aurora at a movie theater? But they can't handle a 13-year-old on his knees. Are you kidding me? I should not have to come up here and say my piece, basically begging for people of my skin color and now my age to not be murdered. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. It's absolutely despicable. And I think everybody who's played into that should be ashamed of themselves. Thank you.
And that's literally it. There's no reason that Ethan at 13 should even be thinking about that stuff. Should even have to contemplate any of the stuff that he's seeing. Next, and I believe lastly, unless there's anybody that would like to get up and say a few words, we're going to hear from Eddie Pratt. He's an activist from the Champaign area that they are blessed to have this man fighting for him over there, because I've never seen anybody with as much energy that he has to take it to the establishment.
Appreciate you, John. I heard about this last minute through a number of chats that I'm in. If it wasn't for John being basically the loudest person in the room, I probably wouldn't have known that this was going on today. So appreciate you again for organizing.
Thanks for driving down.
Oh yeah, I did. We did a little bit over the speed limit here. I'm not gonna incriminate myself, but I don't know about you guys, and I guess I should ask this question. Are you okay? I mean, really, are you okay right now? Are you okay? Chances are, and this is my first time even being to Springfield, chances are you've been here before, in this exact spot, a year ago, in the same weather, for the same reasons. Different people, different faces. Does it feel like time has actually passed for you? Does it feel like anything has actually happened more than a recycle of black bodies being killed unjustly by the same people sworn to serve and protect us all, regardless of who we are, what we look like, what we come from, down to the clothes that we wear. The birthright that we all are supposed to hold. Simply just for being born in this country, having the citizen status of being an American. Constantly, completely disrespected. Even in this day and age where, as I see, as I look around, we have these phones with these high resolution cameras, which inside of it, if you pressed a couple buttons, you could get to your cell phone, I don't know, the entire vastness of the human knowledge that we've ever acquired on this earth. And somehow, these peace officers can come into somebody's home, shoot someone, kill them, say it was a mistake, barely get any time at all, surely not a whole murder charge. How does it feel to be sitting in your home, have this skin, and see that? How does it feel to know that you're not safe no matter who you are, when a 13-year-old white kid can get shot with no thought for how he ever got there? No consideration for his humanity. 1 second lapse between the time that boy put his hands up and when that officer shot. Now, I used to be in the Army for a small amount of time. Thank God that I'm not anymore. There was a time when I worked as a CO, so I had to go through that same paramilitary, training and such. And I know enough to know from all of those experiences that when you're running after a suspect or you're walking up on a suspect, the first thing that you don't do is shoot. But yet, this is what's happening. A routine traffic stop. A 20-year-old black man, hands out the window. 26 years on the force. 26 years of recurring training to know where your pistol is and to know where your taser is, and they're never on the same side of you. 26 years, and in this one instance, you somehow forget how a firearm feels, and yet we're supposed to accept it. This is not what policing is supposed to be. However, you could also say, playing devil's advocate to my own words, that this is exactly what police today are supposed to do. We know that the lineage of modern policing goes back to slave catchers. And when you think about how police operate, even in today, you cannot tell me that they don't operate in the same tense. Where are police presence the most heavy? Black and brown neighborhoods. Whose bodies do they seek to control the most? Black and brown bodies. Who's getting arrested the most? Black and brown bodies. Who's getting killed at a higher percentage? Black and brown bodies. These things are not coincidences. But yet they throw out these pieces of justice. These pieces, these small little crumbs of justice, and tell us that this was the best that they can do. For me personally, me coming from a place like Detroit, Michigan, and I know I may not look it because I haven't satisfied the conditions for my black to crack, but I am 35 years old. I grew up during the crack epidemic in its epicenter. I grew up in the rubble of the past automotive renaissance, the Detroit riots. My family lineage comes to the blue-collar and non-collar workers who worked outside of Black Bottom, a prestigious black neighborhood that was there before the collapse. I moved to Alabama, Tuscaloosa, Alabama at that. A good hour and a half away from Selma, 2 hours away from Montgomery. A very vast and just a little bit disturbing of a experience in my blackness. When I think about all of the people who have passed, who should be alive today, when I see those black faces, when I see these videos cross on social media, it affects me personally. deeply. It's hard for me to sleep. My decision to be active, I guess, if you want to call it anything, isn't something that I romanticize. For me, it's a reactive type of thing. For me, all I'm simply doing is taking a decision to fight back against a system that fights against me, regardless if I consciously or unconsciously decide to fight it. The decision to be explicitly anti-racist is a costly decision, but it is a decision that has to be made within our hearts and our minds if we truly want a world with equity and justice. I don't know if people have realized, this is the age of equality. We have equality today. But equality, after years and years of disenfranchisement, oppression, racism, locking out whole ethnic groups, aka the New Deal, it's not too surprising that once you take those limiters off, people are not in the same place. They're not, and it shows, and we know it. The entire fabric of our society is built off of it. Anyone who claims ignorance is only being willfully ignorant. And if you ask me, that's a tad bit more dangerous than the blindly ignorant, because these people know the truth, they face it, and they decided to turn away from it.
Yep.
It's a new age of racism out here. Now they're doing things out in the open now. They used to try to hide it back in our parents' days. Now we can easily find it. We can FOIA, we have witnesses. People are being killed out in the streets in broad daylight, and there's just as many people as right here on the street. And it still happens. Sometimes I wonder if the things that I do are futile. We're in this, I don't know, it seems like the same period that we were in 2020, where we had 2-3 different cases of injustice, kind of like in a weird type of death triangle of sorts. And we're here again. How do we stop this from happening? We can't stop it today. It's probably not going to stop next week. But for every moment that you decide to resist is a second you take off their clock. Every time that you mobilize at those polls, and I'm not talking about the presidential campaign, I'm talking about local. When you decide to get yourself involved in that process and you find out what your representatives are standing on, what they're pushing on, what they vote towards, what they vote against, that is the point where real change starts to happen. Otherwise than that, socially, being explicitly anti-racist is to meet racism with the same level of confrontation that it meets you with, regardless of the setting, regardless of the person, regardless of their position or yours, or what you have to gain or lose. I have lost whole jobs simply because I am explicitly anti-racist. Being passive aggressive. I mean, like, we know the language of racism is what? Cowardice. And these people will continue to be cowards. It is who they are. Right now, somewhere, God knows, there might be one of those back to blue people, God knows, hiding in the bushes with a camera phone. They might not make themselves known. You know, just like the lady that drove by told us to, you know what? That's a cowardly action. You know, just like they say in the hood, I mean, like, you gonna pull up or not? She drove past. I mean, these are the things that we're gonna contend with always. But the real moves that they make are always made in the shadows, in political rooms. We have to be explicitly anti-racist in everything we do. Because this thing that we're fighting fights us on every single plane of this existence you can think of. There is no escape. For someone like me, there is no escape. I go home, it's on my TV, it's on my phone, it's on my Xbox, it's everywhere. Everywhere. Want to talk about diversity and inclusion? What place of business have you been in today? Who's in those entry-level positions? Who's in those managerial positions? Tell me that the oppressor-oppressed relationship has been broken here in America. We are in the same place that we were in 30 years ago, but we got better technology now. We must all be explicitly, completely, and utterly anti-racist. Do not pick your battles. Fight on all fronts. People like me don't get to choose. And I understand niches. People have their niches. I have mine. Use your talents to further the fight, sure. But make no mistake. This thing fights us everywhere. Do not pick your battles. I'm gonna say something, and some people may not like it, but we are in a time where we need to close ranks. We are in a time where egos must stand aside. There are many people and many organizations across the state that are doing positive things to create positive change for people that need it. However, we are weaker separate than we could ever be if we were together. It's like a link in the chain. What good is one chain link? But when they're all together, when they band together, you tell me what's getting through that. And then that same chain can have multiple purposes there, which you can't have with one little link, can you? What can you do with that? Many links, you can have it as a belt to hold somebody up. You could have it as a weapon to fend off those that you need to. It can protect you. It can create a barrier between unwanted forces. It's about time that we connect those links. I've had an interesting path to being an activist of sorts. I don't have any kind of social justice career track. I don't have a big organization pushing behind me. What I bring is the same thing I bring today, which is my life. It's all I have. And it's all I'm going to give. I don't even take donations from people. Not from people who do, but I do not. Because I just want to bring who I am. That's all I have. It's all I've ever had. And it's been the biggest weapon that I've ever could have hoped for. Use your voice. Use whatever that you got to the highest potential that you can. And that's all I'm trying to do. I fear for my little brother who's 18 in Alabama. I fear for my son who's turning 14 later on this month. I see myself in so many of these people. My man Ethan, I'm sorry, man, because I was listening to you speak, and it's a shame that this system is stealing your childhood away. Because I know what that's like, because it happened to me. And it's still hard for me to reconcile with to this day. And I can't help but to think about how unfair it is to you to have to shoulder the weight of all this. You deserve to have your childhood. And I can guarantee you personally, man to man, I'm going to continue to fight and stand up so that you may never have to again. Because it's not right. It's not right. Oh my God. But I want to close in saying that solidarity is important. The will to organize and to mobilize must never be undermined. We are all tired. But that is exactly the point. The system wants us to be tired. It wants to outlast us. It wants to bury you. So speak up. Continue to do so. Continue to organize. Continue to mobilize. Because there are millions of people who are just like me, who are crushed under the weight of capitalism and can't afford to speak up. So thank you. Thank you for coming out today. Be safe in everything you do. If people meet you with opposition, and they will, especially if you are explicitly anti-racist, stand firm. Connect with other people who feel the same way you do, that are doing the same things that you are. And that will empower you. The fight's not over. We're not even at halftime. So let's keep going. Thank you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it, man. Much love.
Well, is there anybody else who would like to say a few words while we're here? Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out. And
Just one thing I want to say specifically to white people here. You gotta start making shit uncomfortable. Ruin Thanksgiving. Ruin it. Ruin Thanksgiving. Call your grandma out. Call your shitty neighbor out. Call the person at the corner store out. Start learning to live uncomfortably. Because you're not gonna face a bigot with hugs and, oh, we can do better. They already should have been doing better. So that's really all I have to say, is start learning how to make things uncomfortable.
and that's a huge part of it. People of color didn't start racism. They didn't. It's not something that they created in this country. It's something that people who look like me, white people, are responsible for. And anybody who's followed me for the last year has seen that I have done my damnedest to make people really fucking uncomfortable. And I'm still standing here. I've had some interesting encounters, not gonna lie. We know it's tiny. I've had some interesting encounters, but it's nothing. See? Balance there. Asshole, somebody who likes us. But for the most part, the people who are going to speak out against us, or the people who are going to be racist or bigoted in public that you witness, they're going to be just like that guy in the truck. They're going to make a lot of noise, but they're going to do it as they're leaving because they're all cowards. But thank you guys for everybody coming. Can we turn off cameras real quick so I can get some contact information?